We have a new NBA champion, and it is from the smallest market in the history of NBA World Champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Also a huge trade in the NBA with Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets. Does that affect the balance of power in the Western Conference? And remember, the Rockets went out in the first round, but they were the number 2 seed in the West this year going into the playoffs. And I said during the season, I think they're a team that's built for the regular season, not the playoffs, because they don't have that hammer. They don't have that number 1 guy. As good as Jalen Green is, and he's not on the team anymore, he's not a number 1. Kevin Durant is. So I think the Rockets are better now than they were a couple of days ago. Also, after 46 years, Jeanie Buss and the Buss family decides to sell the Lakers. And we got a new owner in Mark Warner. And boy, how about the great Steve Hartman will be joining us momentarily here. In my opinion, the greatest sports talk show host in the history of LA radio, and a guy who was an authority, an historian when it comes to the Lakers. So I want to get his thoughts on the new owner, Mark Warner, the legacy of Dr. Jerry Buss and Jeanie Buss and the Buss family running the Lakers. So we'll be getting a history lesson here momentarily. Welcome to Dave Smith Unleashed, another edition brought to you by MTS Transportation at 800-640-6873 for reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistic partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. And don't forget the MTS giveaway. Dodgers tickets on July 2nd against the Chicago White Sox. One of you lucky YouTube subscribers. And to subscribe to the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast, go to youtube.com/@the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast. And we'll be picking a winner here in the next couple of days for July 2nd against the Chicago White Sox. 4 tickets, row 3 from the field. Free parking, of course, preferred parking, and access to the Stadium Club. All courtesy of MTS Transportation. So lots of great things going on here. Over 2,000 subscribers in less than a month on the air podcasting. So thanks to all of you as we continue to grow. And can't wait to have the great Steve Hartman on to talk about the legacy of the Lakers and memories of Dr. Buss and Jeanie Buss and the Buss family on Dave Smith Unleashed. All right, back after the guest hotline right now. Boy, you want to talk about a historian when it comes to the Los Angeles Lakers, somebody who goes way back and can tell you just about anything. You know, Steve Hartman and I are from the same era, watching the Lakers and loved that 72 team that won Los Angeles our first championship and followed the Lakers throughout the year. So I wanted to get his thoughts, of course, on this whole sale, this whole transaction of the Lakers, the end of an era with the Buss family. So let's bring him on right now. In my opinion, the greatest sports talk show host in LA history. Of course, you can hear him doing the weekend show on Fox Sports Radio and the television sports news on KTLA Channel 5 on the weekends. It's the great Steve Hartman. Steve, thanks for coming on. Good to talk to you again.
David, is always great. And for all the listeners out there, I want to give a little historical perspective on the Lakers prior to the Buss ownership. So in 1978, Jack and Cook still owning the Lakers. I am on the Daily Bruin staff at that point. And we used to do a UCLA versus USC school newspaper. We'd have a flag football game in the fall, and then in the fall and spring, we'd have a home-and-home basketball game. So USC was able to arrange, the Daily Trojan, to have the basketball game move from the sports arena, which was then the home of USC basketball, to halftime of a Lakers show, a Lakers game. So can you imagine, this is where the Lakers were, this is how low they had fallen, that the halftime of a Lakers game in 1978 was the Daily Bruin versus the Daily Trojan basketball game. So I just want to give a little perspective of what was life with the Lakers prior to Dr. Buss, who, by the way, is not only the greatest owner in the history of Los Angeles sports, but absolutely the most important owner in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, I think I can top your story about the Daily Trojan versus the Daily Bruin. When I was in 7th grade at halftime of a Lakers game, my high school against Montclair Prep, remember the little kids used to go out and play at halftime all the time?
Sure.
I played in that game. Dave Smith is a 7th grader. I think that tops the Daily Bruin versus the Daily Trojan.
Well, that's what it was like in those days. I mean, it wasn't the star-studded lineup you see nowadays.
Give us your thoughts on the Dr. Jerry Buss era, then transitioning into the Jeanie Buss era, and boy, the end of an era. After 46 years, Mark Warner, the owner of the Dodgers, is now going to take over the Lakers after the $10 billion purchase. So, your thoughts about the sale and the end of an era?
All right, so here's my thought. I mean, with all due respect to Jeanie Buss, who I consider a friend and have known her a long time, I will say this about this transaction by the Buss children. Now, as you know, they owned 66% of the franchise, 11% each. It was in the trust from their father when he passed away in 2013 that no individual child could actually sell their share of the team. It had to be a joint effort. I'm going to believe this. My belief is that Jeanie Buss realized that they simply did not have the kind of capital necessary. And again, you can say look, the NBA's got a salary cap. We're not talking about that. Well, we're talking about having the money to hire the top coaches, to have the high top end personnel department, front office, all the things that are necessary as an organization to lift the team to the highest level. They just did not have that kind of capital. Obviously, you had a minority owner who was in a position where he had first right of refusal to have the majority share of the team. So I want to believe that Jeanie convinced her brothers and her sister that this was the best move forward, not just for them. Yeah, they cash out, they become billionaires while they can still enjoy the money. But it's the best thing moving forward for the Laker organization and the best thing moving forward for the legacy of what their father put together. So that's what I really think went down here. And obviously, like I said, this is not about spending more money on personnel. This is about upgrading the entire organization. Remember just a couple of years ago, Ty Lue wanted to be the coach of the Lakers. They just didn't have the money to offer him the job. This is how you end up with a Darvin Ham or a J.J. Redick or these second-tier guys that will work for less to become head coach. That's going to be the biggest upgrade for this organization.
And people are pretty much taking this as a positive. Mark Walter won a World Series with the Dodgers last year. They say that his net worth is only $6 million, but the Guggenheim Group has $325 billion in capital, and his other ventures as well. He has a lot of money in some deep pockets, and Jeanie's going to stay on as a 15% owner and as the governor and representing the Lakers. So, do you think this is a win? This is a positive step forward?
Absolutely, it's a positive step. Understand this about Mark Walter. So Mark Walter is a guy that is not a hands-on guy. What he does is spend the money to bring in the absolute best of the best. That's what he did with the Dodgers. Let's get the top GMs, the top personnel people. We're going to upgrade the entire organization. We're going to upgrade the stadium. We're going to upgrade the facilities. We're going to upgrade. And then you've seen the turnaround for the Dodgers to get to the level that Dodger fans had dreamt about for many years. They are at that level. And so anyone that's worked with Mark Walter over the years will say, yeah, he's not one of these nosy guys. He's not going to sit there and say, well, I know basketball and I know this. He's not going to get involved with that. What he is going to do is he's going to hire the absolute best people. I don't know what that means for Pelinka. I don't know what it means for some of the people that have been hanging around the Lakers. I think the biggest thing, the question moving forward, obviously, was the Luka Doncic situation, having to get him to sign a long-term deal. I am confident he will now that Mark Walter is in charge. And by the way, when you mentioned that Jeanie Buss is still the governor, that could be temporary. I mean, they'll have 15%. I mean, he really doesn't want to deal with that kind of stuff. Speaking of Mark Walter, what he's trying to do is upgrade the organization. And then he's going to do a case-by-case of evaluation, what is okay, what is not okay, what needs to be upgraded. And everyone that's worked with Mark Walter says that's the way this guy operates. He's not going to pretend that he knows basketball, just like he doesn't pretend to know baseball. He is a businessman. He knows how to build a winning organization. So for all those reasons, what's going to be interesting, though, Dave, what are they going to do with LeBron James? Because LeBron picks up that $52 million option this year. That means that they're not going to be in a position because of the cap to sign a big man, which they desperately need, of any consequence. And so these are the kind of things moving forward that I'm sure Mark Walter is going to look at. He goes, all right, we've got to build our team about Luka Doncic. What the hell are we going to do with this LeBron James character? And if he doesn't sort of, fit the mold of what Walter is looking for from him, believe me, they'll get rid of him.
And, if there's anything I know about Mark Walter, I don't know him all that well, just from his past business practices and the way he likes doing things. I don't think he's going to allow Klutz and LeBron to take over the organization and make personnel decisions the way it's been over the past couple of years. That stuff's not going to happen anymore.
No, those days are over. Okay. The power of LeBron James to make decisions in drafting his son or hiring a coach or basically dictating the entire future of the Lakers, those days are over, which is one of the reasons. And I guarantee none of this would have happened without a conversation with Luka Doncic, because I'm sure Luka Doncic is saying, all right, who is running the show here? Is it LeBron James? Or is it going to be ownership? And it has been LeBron James. And I'm sure before this deal with Mark Walter was finalized, he was assured from this date forward that Mark Walter is calling the shots. Not Jeanie Buss, not LeBron James. Mark Walter is working with Luka Doncic to build the future of the Lakers. And that's why, Luka Doncic, he said the nice PC thing where he said, well, I'm very excited. I don't know Mark, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure he does. But at the same time, he said, oh, I'm happy Jeannie's still aboard. He said that for PC purposes. But make no mistake about that. She's governor in name only. She has zero power now in terms of the future of the Lakers. All decisions, final decisions, will be made by Mark Walter.
When Mark Walter bought that 26% a few years ago from Philip Anschutz, and he evidently got right of first refusal on a sale. My first thought here when I saw the Lakers sold for $10 billion, Steve, if he didn't have right of first refusal, if they opened this up to bidders, they might have gone for more than 10, maybe 12, maybe 15, if you had people competing against each other.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, we're looking at that $10 billion, like where the hell did you come up with that number? $10 billion. I mean, I guess you could throw any number out there. It's just like any number if you're trying to sell a house. I sell my house for $5 million. No takers? I mean, it really was weird. I don't know where they came up with this $10 billion price tag on the Lakers. That seems to be out of sorts, to be honest with you. But the rest of the NBA is happy about it because it raises the value of all the other franchises. So again, when money is not a factor in terms, like you say, with the Guggenheim Group behind Walter, that's not going to be a factor. If anything, it raises the bar of expectations for the Lakers, and that's exactly what Mark Walter is looking for. Like I said, the biggest interesting note now coming up is going to be the situation of LeBron James, because I guarantee you this. LeBron James's influence now on the Lakers is zero. The only interest the Lakers have now, their decision is, do we want him as a player? Is he still a valuable player for this team? Can we build a championship team around LeBron James? If the answer is yes, he stays. If it's no, he's gone.
Steve, my dad used to take me to the Lakers games when I was a little kid. This is pre-Dr. Buss era, when Jack Kent Cooke owned the team. And, it was a lot of fun out there, and they turned out all the lights, and the court was all lit up. And it was a nice thing to do. It was a lot of fun. But, boy, the second that Dr. Buss bought that team, it was such a culture change, Steve. The Forum Club came alive. All the beautiful people were out there. The Lakers girls, the USC band up in the stand. It was shocking, the change in that organization.
So when I started in radio, so as you know, I worked as the media relations director for the LA Raiders from 84 to 88. My first year on air radio, I'd done behind the scenes radio for years prior to that at old KBC radio with my mentor, Bud Ferrillo. 1989, though, I'm actually there. Now I'm on air and I'm covering games. And the Forum Club, believe me, was the number one nightclub in Los Angeles. It was the nightclub you wanted to be seen at. Now, I had no chance of getting into the Forum Club unless, so I knew the guy that worked the door. And so I said, all right, how can I get in? And he says, it depends on who you bring with you to the door. So I'm not going to mention names, Billy Mack. Billy Mack had just started working in town. So Billy Mack and I were in the same predicament. Neither one of us had any cachet to get into the Forum Club unless we're in the company of a smoking hot lady.
Yes.
So we used to go around the Forum, and I would walk up and I would tell these girls, look, I can get you into the Forum Club. when in reality, they were getting me into the Forum Club. And so we did this all the time so that we could be sort of a fly in the wall. Once you're in, right? And, it was always amazing to be in that Foreign Club because everyone seemed to have their own little perch, whether what celebrities that were in there. There were a ton of celebrities. Obviously, Dr. Buss was at the center of attention, just surrounded by all the ladies. So it was unlike anything. I mean, it cannot be duplicated. It was a time, it was an era, the late 80s when I'm talking about, and it was a Dr. Buss party. And I used to sort of refer to him affectionately as a poor man's Hugh Hefner, right? Sort of wanted to do that. As you know, Dave, I was part of this Winning Time show.
Yes.
As I did all the voice work as the sports talk radio guy. And I felt like, we were very upset, obviously, the way they portrayed Jerry West in this. The head writer is a friend of mine. I said, what did you do to Jerry West? But as far as Dr. Buss was concerned, I thought they did a pretty good job. John C. Reilly played him. I thought he was outstanding in the show. But it did give you a little sense of behind the scenes and sometimes the reckless behavior financially that he engaged in to try to build his dream team. And he did it. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, obviously Magic Johnson started with Magic Johnson, but it was, opening the doors and the encouragement, the floor seats. Let's get the celebrities in. Let's make this an event in LA. We are in Hollywood. Make it feel like it's in Hollywood. Not only did he change the entire dynamic of the Laker organization, but as I said before, he is the single most important owner in the history of the NBA, and it's not even close.
I got into that Forum Club a couple of times in the early 90s, Stephen. As you said, you got to have a hot girl and know somebody important. I was friends at the time with Jeanette Lee. Remember her, the Black Widow, the pool player?
Absolutely.
So she was dating a Laker at the time. So she said, come on. I stood next to her at the door, and her name was on the list. She said, it's a +1. And I got in a couple of times with her. So, yeah, you're right. And she was hot. She was a big celebrity at the time. And boy, but once I was in there, Steve, I've never seen anything with the beautiful women and the party scene going on. It was triple any club I'd ever been to on the Sunset Strip.
Do you remember the Red Onion restaurants?
Yes. A guy I went to high school with, his father owned the Red Onion.
Right. Ron Newman owned the Red Onion restaurant, and I actually dated his daughter, Rhonda. So Red Onion Rhonda, they used to call her. This is when I was working for the Lakers. This was in the 80s. And I remember going down to the Red Onion. There was a Red Onion in the Redondo Beach area where I was living at the time. And they would have, I mean, this place, there's a reason why I went out of it. I mean, it was underrated. I mean, there was a mess. I mean, obviously, hottest girls were always there. But I'll never forget this one time they had some like naughty nighty night or something. And they had all these girls parading around. Can you imagine this? And nowadays, it just wouldn't happen. But anyway, you had all these girls parading around. And there was this one brunette that really just stood out. She was just, off the charts. And then I was sort of lost track. And then, I saw her walking out the door. And I'm sort of like, who is that? What she's Dr. Buss. Yeah, Dr. Buss was at the Red Onion restaurant, picked her off, and next thing you know, she was walking out the door with a guy. He was larger than life.
Yep.
And he hired the best people. He inherited the best people. It's documented in that show, as you know, with Bill Sharman, who you and I both agree, first of all, one of the nicest people that ever existed on the planet, and a man that really is forgotten in many ways in the impact that he had on the Lakers, prior to Pat Riley, prior obviously to Phil Jackson, even prior to Jerry West taking over as the director of player personnel. It was Bill Sharman that really sort of held that thing together in those early years with Dr. Buss. But he just hired the best people, and that's what he did. And, what Jerry West did to, almost killed himself to get Shaquille O'Neal, and then having the foresight of what this high school kid, Kobe Bryant, was all about. And to see them have these, multiple runs. I mean, you had the Showtime of the 80s and then the early 2000s. And then sort of that final hurrah there, the back-to-backs in 09 and 10 for Dr. Buss. It was a thing of beauty. So, look, the Buss family legacy, Jerry Buss's legacy is secure. The children, it wasn't out of not trying. I believe sincerely that Jeanie did everything in her power to try to do what her father did. The problem she had were her personal relationships, the Linda Rambuses of the world. She just leaned too much on friendships, and you simply can't do that. You've got to hire the best people. Forget friendships. She was loyal to her friends, which is commendable, but not when you're running an organization. Mark Walter is going to hire the best people in every single department of that organization.
You know, the treatment of Bill Sharman by the organization always baffled me, Steve. I don't understand why he doesn't have a banner up there in the rafters as important as he was with the Lakers. He's in the Hall of Fame as a player and as a coach. And see, the media all the time says, well, Jerry West built the Showtime Lakers, when in reality, Sharman was the general manager that made the trades for Kareem and for Magic Johnson and for James Worthy. He's really the one who built the Showtime Lakers. Jerry didn't take over as general manager until 1982. So I tried to figure it out. I said, well, maybe it was because he was a Celtic. Maybe, remember, after the Lakers won in 72, because they had Bill Sharman and Casey Jones as the coaches, Red Auerbach said, well, it took Celtics for them to win their first championship. It took hiring a Celtic. What was the problem? Why wasn't he? And then I would do a show once a week with Jeanie back in the day, Steve. And I asked her a couple of times on the air, and it was kind of nervous laughter, and didn't want to talk about it, and tap danced around the question. Well, and he was the nicest guy who ever lived. What was the problem? What was the problem? Why he wasn't acknowledged properly by the organization?
You know, every year I would see him when on the years that I would attend that Southern California Sports Broadcasters Luncheon, Bill was always there. He'd come up with his wife, Steve, you know, with that raspy voice. He could barely talk, obviously, but he was just the nicest man. I don't know. When you think about it, every Laker that has been in the Hall of Fame has got their jersey up there, you know, and the man won the first LA Lakers championship as the coach, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Mostly because of that championship. Yeah, he had an ABA championship. He got other teams to the finals, but that's what put him over the top to get him in as a coach. So he really is, when you think about it, the only one that's in the Hall of Fame that's not on retired in the. So it's a great question, Dave. I really don't know. Like I said, there's nothing that anyone could hold personally against Bill Sharman. It's impossible that anyone would have disliked Bill Sharman. Maybe what you're talking about, you know, that obviously Bill Sharman, one of the great Celtics of the early late 50s, early 60s, you know, he was that guy. He's always associated with the Celtics organization. But frankly, he had way more years with the Lakers organization than he did as a Celtic.
Did you ever hear anything about a rift or a problem between him and the organization?
None.
I can't imagine that, because he was such a nice guy. And I know, you know, Charlie Rosen, who's a big buddy of Phil Jackson's, he told me on the air one time, well, this is what it is. It's because he won all those championships with the Celtics and broke the Lakers' heart all those years. They're not going to acknowledge him because he's a Celtic. I can't imagine that's the reason.
No. I mean, first of all, Bill Sharman only, he won, let's see, 4 championships as a player against the Lakers. 4. Okay, so it's not like he won 13 or 11 or anything like that, and that was so long ago. Are you kidding me? No. I mean, in fact, when I say that, actually, in reality, you want to know the truth? Bill Sharman head to head against the Lakers as a player only won 1 championship, and that was in 1959 when they played the Minneapolis Lakers. So he retired after the 61 season. In 60 and 61, they won their championships in the finals against the St. Louis Hawks. So that makes absolutely no sense. Bill Sharman versus the Lakers never played against the Los Angeles Lakers as a player in the NBA Finals. Never. And so, I mean, that would make absolutely no sense.
Remember, and I would ask Jeanie about it on the air, and she got real nervous and kind of tap danced around it and didn't want to talk about it and changed the subject. I said, boy, there must be something I don't know about, but nobody's ever told me about anything like that, Steve.
Yeah. Well, now, unfortunately, time has passed. I don't know I don't know what Mark Walter's stand is about jerseys and everything else, but like I said, here's what we do know. The Buss era is over.
Yep.
100%, you know, this idea that Jeanie's retained as a governor, that's just to deal with some, you know, she's working for Mark Walters, what she has now. So, you know, he doesn't want to have to deal with that. He's got enough to worry about with the Dodgers. So, you know, I mean, fine. You know, attend meetings, do whatever, you know, do what I tell you to do. She's working for him. But yeah, as far as Bill Sharman is concerned, obviously you cannot talk about the history of the Los Angeles Lakers without talking about Bill Sharman.
Absolutely. Well, great stuff from Steve. Steve, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And thanks. We're going to be doing a part 2 here where we talk further about the Lakers, but I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for your time here.
Anytime, again, you and I actually go back as a 5th grader. So my following the Lakers started when Wilt Chamberlain was traded by the Philadelphia 76ers to the Lakers at the beginning of the 1968-69 season. And of course, that year ended, by the way, with the first home team ever to lose Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Unfortunately, the 69 Lakers became the first home team to lose a Game 7 in the NBA Finals to Bill Russell in his final game. And I remember it was like it was yesterday. I'm still thinking about Don Nelson and that shot that went up and in, and Wilt Chamberlain screaming at Coach Van Bredekop put me back in the game when they made a furious fourth quarter comeback and really had a chance to win that game. The balloons were hanging, ready to be dropped. Jack Kent Cook to win that first LA Lakers championship. It didn't happen. So, I've been living and breathing LA Laker basketball ever since.
Wow, great stuff. That's the end of part 1 of our interview with the great Steve Hartman. Of course, you can hear him on Fox Sports Radio on the weekends, KTLA Channel 5 on the weekends as well, doing the sports news. And can't wait for part 2 to talk more about the Lakers and Lakers history. All right, that does it for us. And thanks again to MTS Transportation, our sponsor at 800-640-6873 for reliable on-time delivery compliance you can count on. Round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistics partners. Mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. So we'll talk to you again next time, and make sure to follow me on X or Twitter at Dave Sports Guy. I'm always posting when the episode's going to be up, and where you can find me on Dave Smith Unleashed or over at CBS Sports Radio. So we'll talk to you next time right here at Dave Smith Unleashed.